Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Welcome to every single book I read in the month of June. Let's just get straight into it. I read 10 books. Wait, no, I read 9 books in the month of June. I actually read 1 nonfiction, a couple thrillers, a couple general fiction, and 1 romance maybe? Is this distracting? Also, I got a haircut. I feel like I'm having a bad hair day. I don't know. Let's go, I guess, in the order I read them in. So we'll start with Into the Abyss. This is the nonfiction book I was talking about, and before I tell you my rating about this, I will say I don't read nonfiction that often. I don't feel like I am the best person to review nonfiction, but I will say I did very much enjoy this book. It doesn't read like a nonfiction book at all. It read very much like it was a fiction book, just the way she told the story. So I feel like maybe if you're used to reading nonfiction, you might not like this book just because it's not gonna read like your typical nonfiction book. At least I didn't think it read that way. Of course, my cat is playing with her toy right now. Okay. Anyway, this is about a plane crash and 6 people died and 4 survived, and you follow these 4 people that survived and how they survived the crash, and then you kind of go into detail of their lives after the crash. What I will say is that I didn't realize that this book is kind of marketed as these 4 people changed so much. I didn't realize that, and like, I don't know. I don't think that that's the correct marketing for this book, but I did still really enjoy the book. Like I said, 5-star, but it's a 5-star in the non-fiction realm, which I feel like is just different than a 5-star in the fiction realm. Like, I wouldn't rank this book with all the rest of my fiction books. I would like rank this separately because it is non-fiction. I still really liked it though, and I feel like this could be a good stepping stone for someone that reads a lot of fiction that wants to get more into non-fiction, because like I said, it didn't read like non-fiction at all. Didn't remind me of a textbook, anything like that, so I really liked how it read. It literally read like a fiction book, like I was reading a story. It didn't feel like I was reading a textbook. Sorry, my cat is probably being so loud. And then next I read The Therapist, which originally when I read this book I rated it a 4-star, but y'all, I just keep thinking about this book. It's a 5-star. Like, it was so good. If you liked The Silent Patient, I think you will love this book, because I loved The Silent Patient and I love this book. It was so good. It is about this woman and her husband, and well, actually they're not married, but whatever. Her and her partner, they move into this community called The Circle. Basically, things are not as they seem. She notices people are kind of talking behind her back and they're kind of tiptoeing around her. It's very like secretive at first, like no one really knows what's going on. Well, no one as in like the main girl character doesn't know what's going on, and neither do you as the reader, but then obviously like eventually that becomes uncovered why they were being really secretive around her. And I swear the ending of this book will get you. Like, it sounds like such a normal thriller, but then you read it and the ending, oh my goodness. I feel like so many people would like this book because I don't think anyone could guess this ending. I mean, I didn't see it coming. I was shocked, but maybe you could guess it. It was so good. And then I think I did my next book a disservice just because I read 2 thrillers in a row, and like I said, I was obsessed with The Therapist. It was so good. Like, I still think about this book to this day, and I read it pretty early on in the month of June, and it's a book that I've already recommended to multiple people. That's how like passionate I feel about this book. So with that being said, I read another thriller right after that, which I probably shouldn't have done. I feel like I did a disservice to this book by doing that, but this is A Stranger in the House, and like I said, I didn't love it. It ended up being a 3-star for me, so not horrible, because I could see people liking this, but to me it didn't live up anywhere close to my love for The Therapist. And I don't know if that's because I read it right after The Therapist, and I don't normally do that. Like, I don't normally read thrillers back to back, so I do feel like that did it a little bit of a disservice. But basically it's about this woman who runs into a tree. She's like reckless driving and she loses her memory, but she was in a very sketchy part of town, and none of her friends or family seem to understand why she would ever be in that part of town. And so the police are very suspicious of her. They're like, why are you in that part of town? She's being charged with like reckless driving, but she's obviously got all this suspicion around her. She doesn't remember anything. And the police are like, that's suspicious that you don't remember anything. I was also like, that's a little bit suspicious that you don't remember anything. But basically it blows up into this whole thing, and it is full of twists and turns towards the end. I found a little bit of unpredictable, so in that sense it was good. That's why I think it's a 3-star. But if you were looking for a thriller, honestly, I'm not gonna recommend you this one. I'm gonna recommend you this one. That's just what I have to say about that, you know? This one, yes. This one, maybe. I have one more thriller to talk about, but I kind of want to go in the order that I read these books. And also the next thriller that I have to talk about, oh, I did not like it. Next, I read Magnolia Parks, and I was actually so worried about reading this book because I've heard so many mixed reviews, but I did go into this knowing that it was a toxic relationship, and I feel like that actually really helped me going into this knowing that it would be about a toxic relationship. So if you're thinking about reading this book, I think that's a good thing to be aware of. At least for me, I feel like that helped me. But you basically follow Magnolia and BJ and their relationship and how they interact with each other. They are both socialites in London, so it definitely reminded me of Gossip Girl, and a lot of people have said that, which is honestly what drove me to pick up this book because I love Gossip Girl, and they definitely remind me of Blair and Chuck from Gossip Girl. So if you watched Gossip Girl, you know Blair and Chuck, their relationship is not good. It's not healthy, and neither are they in this book, but it is a very much character focused book, which I feel like is why a lot of people don't like it, because the toxic relationship, like, they're obviously not great, at least not great for each other. They're not great people together, so that might drive you crazy, but I really liked it. I rated this a 4-star. I think the only thing holding this back from a 5 was because I really did not like BJ, but I heard that in the last book that just came out, which is Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, that BJ kind of like makes a little bit of a, what is it called? Like he make amends, like people start to like him. But I heard that people understand BJ better in this book. Like I said, 4-star. I just really think that you should be aware going into this that it is a toxic relationship. Also, if you love like the fashion side of things, I loved that she's constantly like saying what designers people are wearing and like describing what they're wearing. I loved that because I love clothes, I love fashion. And then I listened to the Guncle. One of my friends actually recommended me this book. I think I'm gonna give it a 3.5. It was really good. I listened to the audiobook. I actually really liked the audiobook. And for me, it's hard to find a good audiobook. Like, sometimes I'm worried I'll miss things, and if I do miss things, I need to be able to understand what's going on pretty quickly. But this is about a gay uncle, which is why they call him Gunkle, which it's just so funny. Like, the uncle main character is so funny, but his like best friend had just died, and so he kind of takes in her 2 kids while her husband is going into rehab. So he is watching these 2 kids, he's teaching them a lot, and like in such a funny way. I really enjoyed this, and I would say definitely go listen to the audiobook. The audiobook was so good. It was the perfect mix of lightheartedness but also kind of exploring some of these deeper topics in a book. I really liked it. I've had the second book, which I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but I have a hold on it for Libby right now, so I'm really excited to listen to that one as well. The author actually narrates the book, which I think is just so fun, and he does a great job. So if you're looking for a new audiobook, I would say try that one. I really enjoyed it. And then I must have gone on an audiobook kick in the middle of the month because I also listened to Normal People by Sally Rooney. This one's a 3-star. I didn't love it. There were some parts that I like really liked, I really enjoyed. It was a very character focused book, which I do normally like that when I like the characters. There were just some things in here that kind of didn't sit right with me, and I hated the way it ended. Like, I really did not like the ending at all. So I was just a little bit mostly disappointed. For most of the book, I thought it was going to be higher than a 3-star, but she really lost me towards the end. But basically you follow these 2 people who went to high school together, and they kind of spark up like a love interest. A little romance, that's what I'm trying to think of. They spark up a little romance, and they're both very flawed, which does make them more realistic, but also there's just some things, like I said, didn't really sit right with me. But you follow them throughout high school and then also into college, so you follow them for a while, and I think you get a little bit of their life post-college, or they're about to start their post-college life, but I just didn't love it. I wasn't obsessed with it. I think I wanted more than I got out of it, which it was just a little bit disappointing, but like I said, I did like it. It was just the ending that was like, ugh. I honestly had a little bit low expectations for this book because this is my second Sally Rooney book that I read, and I think I rated the other one a 3-star as well. Like, I wasn't obsessed, you know what I mean? And when I'm reading a book, I want to be obsessed. Like, I want to love it. Next, I read The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This is the book I was kind of alluding to earlier that I just didn't end up loving. I ended up rating this a 2.5, which I was just so disappointing because the beginning, like 40 50, maybe even 60% of the book I really enjoyed. Like, I thought that this would have at least 4.5 stars. Like, I thought it would be so good. You know how thrillers always have like that twist at the end that you really don't want to be able to guess. Like, you don't want to expect it to be coming. This twist was so out of left field that it was like, what the heck? Like, there was absolutely no alluding to anything like this happening at all. I was like getting whiplash from this book because I'm sorry, what? Let me rewind and tell you what this book is even about. This is about a woman who lost her husband. Her husband died, and because of that, she doesn't really know how to cope. She just starts drinking all the time. Like, she has a drinking problem. And so her family kind of send her off to their lake house to almost like quarantine herself from the world because she's also famous. So I guess they're kind of like trying to hide her from the world and like hide her problem. But then she starts stalking the house across the lake and kind of becomes convinced that things are going wrong. There's something wrong. Let me see if you know what's wrong. So she's watching the house across the lake, which Tom and Catherine live in that house, who are both pretty famous. So I guess this lake just attracts famous people. But Catherine, the woman who lives across the lake, vanishes. And so since she has been watching this house, literally stalking them, stalking sounds like the wrong word, but I guess that's what she's doing. But since she's been watching this house, she immediately suspects the husband of being the reason why Catherine disappeared. You obviously learn what happened to Catherine and all these like things come up. It's just the twist at the end, like it was just way out of left field. It was too much. Like, I read that and I was like, you've got to be joking right now. I was disappointed. But also, I thought that this was a very well-loved book. Now I'm like, is it? Like, I thought that this was like a very popular, well-loved book. Would not recommend that one. Like I said, if you are looking for a thriller, you already know, read The Therapist. And then I kind of pivoted away from thrillers and I read The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. When I tell you guys what I rated this book, I think you might gasp. I think you might drop your jaw to the floor. I gave this a 3-star. I know, don't hate me, please. It wasn't horrible, it was just took me way too long to get into this book. I think there's 4 novellas in here. The first like novella and a half, I was kind of dragging my feet. Like, I just couldn't get into it. And I hate to say this, I really do. I think I should have read this book first because the things that it alludes to and the spoilers that people say happen in this book, and that's why you should read it third instead of first. If you've been here, you know I already guessed the ending to the second book. So that would not have been a spoiler for me at all. Also, it doesn't tell you in this book, it just kind of alludes to something, and I already knew that. And then the other thing was like so tiny that it was like, why are people calling this a spoiler? If anything, like, I knew what was going to happen in this book. I don't know, I was just very disappointed by the fact that I read this third instead of first. I had been debating the reading order for this series for so long that I think either way I read it, I probably would have been disappointed just because I was in my head so much about which order to read this book. But I didn't love the idea of like having to go back in time to read this one. Like, because of the way the second book ended, I really just wanted to keep going and see what happened in the third book. So I did rate this a 3-star. I think the reading order really does matter for you. I wish I read it first, but it's okay. It wasn't horrible, just hated having to go back in time when I really just wanted to keep going in the series and like see what happened. It was still good, I just wasn't obsessed. And then the last book I read this month was Veronica Ruiz Breaks the Bank. This is, I think, like 3.5 in the series. It's a novella, but since it's so deep into the series, I'll only tell you what the first book is about. This book is in the Finley Donovan series, so the very first book is called Finley Donovan is Killing It, which is about this author who is Finley Donovan, and she's meeting with her agent in a coffee shop, or a Panera technically, and is telling her agent about her new book idea, which in the book the main character is basically a hitwoman. And so she's telling her agent about this, and the person at the table next to her thinks that this is real, that she, the author Finley, is a hit woman, and basically tries to get Finley to kill someone for her, like murder for hire kind of thing. But the series has been so good so far. It's kind of rom-com-y, kind of mystery. It's like a great mix of all of these different genres, and I really love the characters. Like, they feel so real. I've actually listened to every single book in this series so far, and I've really liked it. This novella I think is the lowest I rated any of the books in the series. I rated it a 3-star. I think most of the other ones have been 4 stars, but like I said, I've listened to every single one so far, and I'm currently listening to the next book in the series. So that is every single book I read this month. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!